stations from airing Idris Abdulkarim's new song titled Tell Your Papa, which was released on Monday this week. In the song, the rapper criticized President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's economic policies, accusing him of making too many empty promises. He also called on President Tinubu's son, Sheikh Tinubu, to convey the hardships faced by Nigerians to his father. The NBC, in a memo, stated that the song was deemed to violate Section 318 of the Nigeria Broadcasting Code and advised various stations to exercise discretion and refrain from airing the music to maintain responsible broadcasting standards, adding that it considered the song's content to be inappropriate and objectionable. Dr. Abati, Abdulkarim again is back in the news. We know that his previous song, I believe it's Nigeria Jaga Jaga, was banned, by radio during President Olusegun Obasanjo's reign in 2004. Now we are seeing almost the same, sort of ban coming on his song. But we know that Jaga Jaga became some sort of anthem after that ban.
Okay, censorship has been one of the major problems that artists have faced in the world. In the past, even Copernicus was censored. Even, other writers were censored, including the man that created the Protestant movement and all of that. So many books, so many songs in history that were banned and burnt. But many of those, artistic works have been revealed to be works that contain truths, that told the truths about the world. Even Galileo Galilei, when he said that the world was round and not flat, it was, sanctioned. Even Cicero had his tongue pulled out of his mouth because they said he was saying things that were not acceptable, not fit to be broadcast, and that he didn't exercise discretion. I use the word not fit to be broadcast because that's what Section 3.1.8 of the National Broadcasting Code of Nigeria is relying upon. Now, here, we're dealing first with censorship and the futility of it, and the abrogation, the abbreviation of the right to freedom of expression under Section 39 of the Nigerian Constitution. In the United States, they will call it the First Amendment. Now, the NBC operationalizes a subsidiary regulation. Are we dealing here with overreach on the part of the National Broadcasting Commission? There have been issues about the current extant NBC code and how they arrived at some of those provisions in that code. Now, the discretion that they are talking about, that should also be a question that the people running the National Broadcasting Code should ask themselves about the quality of their discretion, about the quality of the maturity that they bring to the work. But that's another question for another day. But we see censorship as a form of dictatorship. And the Tinubu administration must resist dictatorship, particularly with the freedom of the imagination, with the freedom of the artist. Second, this is not the first time that Abdulkarim will face this kind of situation. In 2004, that was when he released Jaga Jaga, Nigeria Scatter Scatter. Even President Obasanjo directly attacked him because of that. I think that particular song was also sanctioned. But the limit of censorship is that when you censor something, when you ban something, you can even promote it. Nigeria Jaga Jaga, Nigeria Scatter Scatter became almost a national anthem, in spite of the ban in 2004. In 2024, this same Idris Abdulkarim released a song titled Emilokan, in which he criticized President Tinubu. And now he has released this one, say, Tell Your Papa, in which he's sending Sheikh Tinubu to his father to say, look, Nigeria is not okay, people are hungry, people are this and that. What the NBC has done, by banning people, by misapplying and misinterpreting Section 39 of the Constitution, is that people now will begin to go and look for this song.
Yes.
What we teach students in the field is about how you can use song as satire. So I think that this is a satirical song, and many Nigerians may now have been motivated by the National Broadcasting Commission to go and look for it, to find out satire. So banning things, banning knowledge, banning expression did not work in the 12th century. It did not work in the 13th century. It did not work in the 19th century. It's not likely to work now.
All right. Well said, Dr. Abati. Well, we'll take another story now. Well, the controversy surrounding President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's appointments center stage in social discourse. Tinubu's appointments have been criticized for allegedly favoring his tribesmen and women over other Nigerians. Last week, Senator Ali Ndume, an APC lawmaker, publicly accused the president of violating the federal character principle in his appointments. Well, in response to these allegations, the presidency released a list of appointees and their geopolitical zones, revealing a notable underrepresentation of the Southeast and a significant number of appointments from the Southwest, the president's home region. However, critics pointed out that the list was incomplete. Notably missing was the president's chief of staff, Femi Gbajabiamila. Well, in response, Sunday Dare, the president's special advisor on media and public communication, apologized for the errors in the list and promised an updated version. Rimbai, I know that you saw this Sunday Dare's tweet that was trending. I believe that he has deleted it. Let me just read some parts of the tweet that he put out, because he also, published the lists as well with this tweet. Sunday Dare wrote, President Tinubu and appointments. On this issue of appointments by the Tinubu administration, it is important to state that President Bola Tinubu is a detribalized leader. His antecedents before he even became president speak to this fact. As Lagos governor, President Tinubu populated his government with competent hands, both from within and outside Lagos, not minding which tribe you come from. People tend to isolate new appointments so far made by the president to examine them with a tribal lens. But is it too early to conclude that appointments are lopsided? Tinubu has barely completed 2 years in office. There are plenty more appointments still coming. Well, Sunday Dare, we are still waiting for that list. But let me just, reel out, the numbers of the list that he had published. According to the geopolitical zone, I believe there were about 29 from the Southwest as well. Then we saw 25 people from the North Central, 24 from Northeast, 35 from Northwest, 22 from South-South, and 15 from the Southeast. We saw that, that was some of the outrage we saw. Because it did show that, some sort of lopsidedness. But I saw a lot of people from the Northwest, Vimbai. In the meantime, before I come to you, a report from the Sun newspaper claims that the federal government has decided to disregard the 70-30% ratio for career diplomats and political appointees in the recent list of ambassadorial nominees. The report quoted a source from within the ministry, stating that the list is currently undergoing screening by security agencies or political figures, such as former senator representing Kaduna Central, Shehu Sani, former aviation minister Femi Fani-Kayode, and former presidential aide Reno Omokri have been reported in the media as part of the nominees undergoing screening. I believe that they said that the source also expressed concern that the move prioritizes political interest over career expectations of diplomats, potentially leading to inadequate representation for the country. That is the source from, the Sun newspaper quoting. We did see those names. They are not verified, but we saw those names and people are screaming, Reno Omokri, Femi Fani-Kayode, and all of that. Your thoughts on the stories?
Well, there's a lot to unpack, but let's begin with the issue of federal character that we touched on earlier in the program. And I think all of this is about, shall we call it empowerment? Because when you look at it's about trying to create representation. So the principle of federal character is about ensuring that there is fairness in the representation of every geopolitical zone when it comes to the decision-making bodies of this country. Of course, we know the antithesis of this is where we are coming from. We are coming from a place where there has been disunity, where there's been marginalization. Various groups feel that way. So this is something that was supposed to bring everybody to the table, create unity, and create a sense of inclusion for all involved. Now, this particular issue raised by Senator Alin Dume, he's not the first person to raise this issue. This has been raised several times in the past. And of course, when you look at the list, people are saying that this particular tribe, the Yoruba tribe, is dominant. So even if you break it up and you say Southwest and so forth, Southwest and into the various geopolitical zones, they're saying that, well, the majority there are still Yoruba. That's number one. Number two is that there were a number of names missing. From there, I believe the most recent appointments from NNPC were not reflected there. There's a number of names that people are saying, like you said, Femi Gbajabiamila was not there. Yes. So how can we say that this is a robust list of the political appointments that have been made? Now, I understand the strategy at play, because when former President Buhari was criticized of the same thing, his advisors also did the same thing. They released a list that stated each of the geopolitical zones represented. Now, in all fairness to him, when we looked at that, because remember President Buhari was often accused of always prioritizing the north, the north, the north. But when you look at the breakdown, it was distributed across different tribes in the north. Is that a justification? Well, that's one of the arguments. But for this, people are saying that we now wait for the final list, because this was supposed to vindicate you, but it seems you now created more hot soup for yourselves. People have the statistics. Let's see what they will share for us now. 2 years down the line, federal character is supposed to be implemented from the beginning. Another challenge is the fact that federal quota in and of itself, federal character, is not a quota. So the Constitution doesn't say that this is the number of people that has to represent each place. It speaks of fairness. So maybe that's something that needs to be looked into until we get to a place where there can be that equality in representation. Now, 2 years without ambassadors is absolutely just shocking. Yesterday there was some criticism around, not just yesterday, throughout this week, there's been criticism around the president being in France for a working visit, and the fact that we don't even have an ambassador there, and then reports saying that, well, the French president himself is actually not in France at the moment. He's here somewhere in Africa attending to some business. And we just ask ourselves, all of this in the absence, who is representing Nigeria? Who is holding fort for the nation at the moment, where the world is at a massive precipice? Conversations are being had. Diplomacy is what's leading right now. But we don't have anybody to represent us in these high-level conversations at the moment. So many things to unpack there.
We are waiting for Sunday Diary's updated list. This representation that we are asking for. And we are seeing this story from the Sun newspaper. Your thoughts?
So see, this is my mindset as regards federal character. It should not just be about where you are from. It should also be about the competence of the individual. And if you look hard enough, across every area, over 774 local government areas in this country, we have competent people, we have standard people. The accusation that I've also made is the fact that, see, it's tilted more towards the Yoruba tribe. I'm a Yoruba man, I'm telling you this. And I want a level of fairness. See, you will look at that list and you'll see a lot of North Central. Like some of these NNPC appointments recently made, they will claim they're from North Central, but they're from Yoruba ethnic group. And that's just what it has become. When people start to have that perception that, oh, it's a Yoruba government, that's not fair. And a leader must absolve themselves from all of this. See, let's go back to the Civil War. These were exactly the concerns during the Civil War. Federal character has always been a big issue. We all even set up a Federal Character Commission. We must be able to have a level of balancing, and that must start from the perspective of the leader. The leader must be able to incorporate many parts. It has to be said. Please correct me if I'm wrong. During Olusegun Obasanjo's time, did we ever have a need to say it was a Yoruba-based government? No. In fact, the accusation against Olusegun Obasanjo then was that it was a Southeast government, an Igbo government, because he embraced a lot of people from the Southeast. So that's what we are talking about. And you see, I do not like the vituperations and the jerking reactions from the presidency, because when you make any comment, they think you are attacking them. No, we want the best for the country.
Right.
They should stop this constant case of Jakboroism. Jakboro, forget
What
it.
does it mean,
Jakboro means you wiggle, you are so quick to respond. No. And Ali Ndume was apt when he said, we know that their foot soldiers are going to come at me.
Yeah.
So please, let us remove that. Secondly, I have not gotten the empirical list. I don't want to comment based on not having empirical facts.
All right.
But if the feelers I'm hearing as regards the quality of persons being considered for ambassadorial position, Nigeria has become a joke.
All right.
It is dancing wiggle, 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 wiggle.
All right, Rufai, you and your words. But you know, my dad asked me once to ask you, Rufai. You said Werekpe. What is Werekpe? He wants to know.
Werekpe means Werekpe.
When you criticize them, it affects them like Werekpe. Dr. Abati, your thoughts?
Look, what we're dealing with is a problem at the heart of the Nigerian national question.
Yes.
It speaks to the fact that we're not yet a nation. We're a country whereby everything is looked at from the prism of religion and ethnicity. Every Nigerian that gets to power at the center plays the politics of proximity, plays the politics of what Matthew Kuka calls the Maronization of power, and does not also feel safe with people from other parts of Nigeria. You want your own people, thinking that your own people are the ones that will make you safe. That's why, go and check. When they appoint a chief security officer, ADC and all that, they usually pick people from their areas. So, and this problem has been there. It was part of the reason for the Civil War. Decree number 34 of 1966, the unification decree introduced by Ononsi. People say, oh, this was supposed to help Igbos because, an Igbo man was there, and they looked at the government and they said Igbos were dominating everywhere. We have not recovered from that root cause in this country. That's why I have argued elsewhere that this federal character that we're talking about, yes, there is the whole purpose under Section 14, sub 3 of the Constitution is about equity, fairness,
That's it.
diversity.
That's it.
But also, there should be an emphasis on competence, ability. The president of Nigeria, in dispensing patronage, I said over 5,000 positions that can be dispensed by the federal government of Nigeria. It is up to the president to make sure that there is fairness, equity. But should we get to a point in this country? That's the question.
That's the question.
When we should say there should be meritocracy.
Yes.
I'm sitting here, wasting volumes of saliva every day. But in this same country, you have touts in important positions.
Correct.
You have Division 3 persons in important positions.
Yeah, I was told Agbero is tout. Agberos.
No, my definition yesterday,
said tout.
I said street tax collector.
This
That's
is
what
tout.
I
Yeah,
said.
touts are street tout collectors.
Well, I didn't use the word tout. I said street tax collector.
Go ahead.
That's the elegant phrase
Elegant.
that I used. So this is this country where you have Division 3 people in important positions, just because they have godfathers, just because they come from a particular part of the country. This is a country where a boy from Anambra will score over 300 in JAMB examination. He will not get admission. Somebody will score 100 from Kebbi State. He will enter university. And then before you know it, he will end up as a permanent secretary or as a Supreme Court judge.
Right, all right.
No, that kind of thing does not go well for national development.
Right.
This is the question. We have to return to that conversation when we merit matter in Nigeria.
Well said. We are appealing for meritocracy. meritocracy, really. Shall we head over to Anambra State now, highlighting this amateur video, which captures the deteriorating condition of Uwaka Bridge in Nnewi. The eyewitness in the video is calling on the governor of the state, Charles Chukwuma Soludo, to urgently intervene, especially with the onset of the raining season. Let's take a look.
Governor Soludo, Your Excellency, the community is completely cut off. Everything caterpillar ever, around a very slow walk. Now, this time around, the villagers are cut off. The community is cut off from their access roads. This place is completely cut off. Nothing is happening here. More water is still coming. Look at it.
I thought I should highlight this video for the governor. I mean, raining season is coming, and we did highlight that, you know, they've mentioned a couple of states that are flood prone. Meanwhile, the governor of Anambra State, Chukwuma Soludo, has reiterated his commitment to clamping down on those promoting get-rich-quick charms, renewing his stance on the ban of native doctors, speaking while addressing a group of All Progressives Congress members. On Wednesday, the governor narrated how 23 indigents of the state are now on death row in Indonesia due to drug-related offenses. He claimed that the arrest was connected to native doctors' deceptive practices. Dr. Abati, you weren't here when we discussed this native doctor ban in Anambra State, and that's why I brought it back, really. I mean, you can hear Charles Chukwuma Soludo here saying that 23 people in Indonesia are, you know, on death row, and saying that, you know, these people will bring charms, and then when they bring these charms, they tell these drug peddlers that, you know, you can go through the security without being noticed. What are your thoughts on the ban on, really quickly, native doctor charms, so we can take our good news report?
Let me start by congratulating Governor Soludo,
yes,
who has been given the ticket for a second term on the platform of APGA, the dominant party in Anambra State.
APGA.
Yes, in the election that is coming up in November. Now, Governor Soludo, the basic point that he's making is about moral rearmament,
yes,
in this society. What he's saying is about this get-rich quick mentality among young people, this instant gratification, episode that we have that is a problem to the development process in Nigeria. And he is saying that hard work pays. Voodooism does not pay. And he's saying that these native doctors are the ones who are promoting this idea. They call it okuite. I think it's okuite, money ritual.
Yes.
You know, and that a lot of people in his environment, in Anambra State, maybe in the southeast, are going for okuite. They want to get rich quick. And he says, look, the kind of government that he wants to run is a government that emphasizes hard work and talent.
Yes.
And I think that that is a very important message.
Yes.
And it's also important that each time he makes this point, he says it's not against traditional religion.
Okay. Yes.
It's not about traditional.
Yes.
The Constitution allows the freedom of religion, freedom of belief. What is opposing is charlatanism.
Charlatanism, and I said that the last time.
Which Professor Wole Soyinka has already dramatized in the trials of Brother Jero. You know, so many charlatans hiding under, witchcraft, voodooism, magic, which is an offense, by the way, under the criminal code.
Yes.
You know, and he's saying, live a very honest life. And I think in that regard, you cannot fault him. In fact, he was also talking about noise making. People going to the market, making noise in the name of religion.
Well,
no,
what can we say?
He says, live a decent life.
Well said.
And live well.
Well said. Kudos to Professor.
Before we filed the case of Fálànà and another, I think Leke Sanusi and Babangida. A very terrible case. The then acting chief judge, the late Judge Legally Ayeride, put the case before himself. And in his ruling, he abused the hell out of us. He described me as a busybody, a medicine interloper. and blame my lawyer for not discouraging me from filing a frivolous suit against, in his own word, President Ibrahim Babangida, who has since become the Kabiyesi of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Another public interest case filed by Chief Fálànà thereafter was assigned to himself by Judge Ayoni. On that occasion, Chief Fálànà filed an application that the judge should recuse himself, since he believed that Babangida was beyond reproach for having the temerity to make that application. Justice Ligali Ayoni accused Chief Fálànà of contempt, convicted him, and sentenced him to 12 months imprisonment, even though the maximum punishment was 3 months for contempt of court. Now, this story is very important so that we can know where we are coming from. But Judge Ayoni belonged to a different class of judges. Majority of the judges at the material time knew their law, had the courage to challenge dictatorial tendencies of the military regime. One of them, in the Federal High Court here, Justice Odunawo, when the premises of Punch newspapers were closed down, Justice Odunawo said, except under a state of emergency, you do not violate the human rights of the people without a challenge. That was under a military regime. And he ordered the military to vacate the premises. In the case of National Concord, no, that one was handled by Chief Fálànà. In the case of National Concord, National Concord was closed down, among others, for insisting on recognition of the June 12th election results. I handled the case. The regime was careless in issuing the proscription order. And so we went to court. In the decree, the regime said the premises of National Concord newspapers are hereby sealed up instead of sealed off. You may check the dictionary. So I took a bottle of wine to the court. And I said, my Lord, I think I just agree here. My Lord, this decree says that the premises of the Concord have been sealed up. Only a bottle of wine can be sealed up. A building cannot be sealed up. So the intention of the principal law is to seal off and not to seal up. On that basis, the judge ordered the reopening of the National Concord premises. Now, at the highest level, at the apex court, this is very important, so that we can know when the rain began to beat us. The Supreme Court then was one of the best in the world. In the days of Kayode Esho, Otutu Obaseki, Anyabolu, and the rest of them, the military dictator had seized, just 3 cases, had seized the house of Ojukwu's father on Queen Drive, number 29. Ojukwu went to court. While the case was pending, the military ejected him forcefully. The Supreme Court, a short spoke for the court and said In any country where the rule of law is allowed, rule of force by itself is abandoned. Therefore, before we can hear this case, you must go and restore Oduku and his family to that house. How dare you in those days not to comply with the judgment of the Supreme Court? The court was respected. The judgment was complied with. Another one, the Necom house on Marina was gutted by fire. Garba, the head of the fire brigade service, federal, and his boys were able to quench the fire. The military didn't believe they did enough, so they were charged with murder. Because 2 people died in the fire incident, but they saved over 600 other people. He ran to Chifa and Chifa filed an action in court. The murder charge was quashed. He was then interdicted. He went to court. No, while the case was in court, he was interdicted. While the case was in court, he was dismissed. The judge who was handling the case couldn't stomach what happened. He resigned from the bench. Buhari was the head of state. For such embarrassment to the judiciary, the judge resigned. I think, Richard, you have written a book in honor of that judge. When the case goes to the Supreme Court, again, Justice Esho spoke for the court, the Supreme Court. And Justice Esho said, the military in coming to power is always faced with a dilemma. Either to allow the rule of law or rule of martial force. Once the rule of law is allowed to operate, all authorities, including the military, must go to the rule of law. By sacking this man while his case was pending in court, the military has committed contempt of court. To purge yourself of the contempt, thou shalt reinstate the man. The dismissal was annulled, and the man was reinstated. The last one that will interest you, the late Professor Iyayi, Professor Iyayi, Professor Sage, Iche Sage, and others were removed by the University of Benin. As the government, we had gone to court, the late Akabashon had led me in court. As the government could not justify, the government was going to lose the case. So they ran to Babangida, we are in trouble. Yet, we must send away all these radical and Marxist lecturers. I think about 10 of them. Babangida said, what do we do? People will just set up a visitation panel. So let's use that report. So they used the report of the visitation panel to dismiss or justify the removal of those lecturers. When the case got to the Supreme Court, my boss, the later company, said, no, we've won at the High Court and Court of Appeal. Go and join them there. The late Dr. Mudiagaoye was the lawyer to the government. And so he brought a decree. Once anybody has been sacked in the public interest, Decree 17 of 1984, nobody can look at it. And the judges, Oputa was on the panel, Calibre White and others. They asked him, Dr. Mudiagaoye, the young man is saying that you are using a report of a visitation panel. Babangida as head of state would have sacked anybody under Decree 17. But once he acted as a visitor, it does not have visitorial powers to sack a lecturer in any university. And when Dr. Ige was insisting, one of them said, Dr. Ige, you and I attended the University of London. Will you have imagined the Queen as our visitor coming to sack a lecturer in the University of London? And the old man said, no, sir. He said, is that all? He said, my lord, that is all the way from body. Now, of course, the Supreme Court held in favor of the lecturers. That was the court then. Not a KPSC court, a court of justice. Now, these stories are important for those of us who still go to the court. Now, just to let you know, while I'm telling this story, a few things are happening in our country right now. The most serious is emergency rule. I was in Senegal for a meeting 2 weeks ago, meeting of the Media Foundation for West Africa. So while I was in the meeting, somebody rushed in and said, there has been a coup in Nigeria. So I rushed down. They speak French, you know. They didn't quite hear the news. So I went out to find out. I then rushed back. No, it wasn't a coup. Emergency rule has been posed in one state, and they appointed an administrator. The president appointed, and they said, is the president unelected? I said elected. What of the governor? I said the governor is elected. How can you remove him? And then replace him with a retired soldier. Mr. Fálànà, what kind of democracy is that? I was utterly embarrassed. Right? And I think Awudiobe has made a point, Chief Awudiobe, that by appointing a former military dictator to go ahead and state, the government may be tempting soldiers to disrupt the entire exercise. Now, for lawyers, please, when you hear any lawyer defending emergency, I beg you, ask one question. What section of the Constitution, what section allows removal of the governor and deputy and then suspension of legislation? Please ask, because this regime last year went to court to challenge the removal of governor and of local government chairmen and councillors by governors. And the Supreme Court was total by saying no governor has the power in Nigeria to remove elected chairmen and councillors. And this regime was celebrating the judgment. Even though the Supreme Court even went off the track by amending the Constitution to please the executive. They rewrote Section 162 of the Constitution, which stipulates that every month the statutory allocation of states, of local government, shall be paid into a state local government joint account. Supreme Court said no, that shall pay it directly. That judgment was delivered in July last year. As if they comply with? No. And they won't comply, if you must know. Now the point I'm making, Sunday, when you have a KPSC in power, that the judgments of court, particularly the Supreme Court, are treated with ignominy. Another case that will interest you currently, the NURTW had an election in August last year. Barua was re-elected. His opponents, like Barua, went to court, National Industrial Court. They lost. They went to the Court of Appeal. They lost. The Court of Appeal is the last court. It is the Supreme Court of Labor Matter. As I'm talking to you, as we're gathered here, Oluomo, not elected by either the members or the court. You know, court also elect people in Nigeria. Is the one in the secretariat of that video today. Why Barawa is kept outside the secretariat of the day. To take over that secretariat, they invaded the place theater and killed one Nigerian. Barawa was charged with killing the person in order to get him out of the office. So he and his officers were detained as murder suspects. So by the time they came out, the secretariat had been taken over and given to somebody who never won the election or won any case in court. The point I'm making, the regime chooses and picks whichever judgments it likes to comply with and obey. Now, I recently intervened with respect to the case of Natasha by saying that not less than 10 cases decided by Nigerian courts have heard that suspension of a legislator in Nigeria is illegal. Because once you do so, when you do so, you have denied the constituency representation in the parliament. That is the law. Mr. or Senator Godswill Akpabio was in the Senate under Dr. Bukola Saraki when in 2017 Senator Ali Ndume was suspended. He went to court and won the case. Godswill Akpabio was also in the Senate when in 2018 Senator Ovie Omo-Agege was suspended. He went to court and won his case. In any country where the rule of law operates, once there is a precedent, you comply. I understand a senior lawyer, the Senate President, when he was told, if this lady goes to court, she will win and say, that will take time now. Let her go to court. You know that is the language in Nigeria. You know you are wrong. You say, let him go to court, let her go to court. You are not going to use your own money. You are going to use the money of the state. It is a height of impunity for a senior lawyer to ignore the judgments of the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court on any given matter. That is what is going on in Abuja. Yesterday, the governor of Kogi State, no, I won't go that far. They say I should call him Olodo. I call him Ododo as a lawyer. He issued an order, illegal order, that I hereby ban all rallies and meetings. And I also ban convoys of vehicles, believing that Natasha was going to come in a convoy. And the people of Kogi did all of us proud yesterday by showing, and this is the point, a people organized can never be defeated. They gathered in a mammoth crowd, a crowd that the governor could not mobilize in that state, in spite of the threat to arrest anybody who defies the order of the governor. People drew down. And when they were monitoring the roads, this lady came through the sky. You know, they couldn't ban movement of planes and helicopters. So, totally shocked and rattled, totally shocked and embarrassed. The government aside the security forces, please arrest and question this lady for defying the order of the government. I say here I will provide the question. There's no law in Nigeria that was breached by her yesterday. As a matter of fact, under section 39 and 40 of the Constitution, which guarantee freedom of expression and freedom of association, assembly, she was only enjoying her fundamental rights by going peacefully to our community and meeting with members of our constituents. And with what we saw yesterday, you know, the so-called recall exercise, where they claimed they had mobilized 250,000 people in 2 or 3 days. You know it's a challenge. The people came out on their own. Yes, not being paid. Or did you see anybody distributing money? You could see them dancing. It was a festive mood. But you know what that lady did yesterday? Is to tell the people in Abuja, we all collectively own this country. And all of us must also take that home. Last week, about the same time, one minister in Abuja, I think the FCT minister, Mr. Wiki, asked the body of benchers to go and grab a lawyer. You know, if you want to discipline a lawyer, you will write a petition. He said, don't wait for petition. Just call him, you wrote this, and discipline him. So for them, rule of law, due process, nonsensical. Now it is self-help. You know, currently, and all of us here must please help our people. The Lagos state government is currently demolishing shanties occupied by the poor. But when the big people, including those in Banana Island, they call it Banana Republic, when they build without approval, the government will say they are ratifying it. But when it comes to the poor, you demolish. So one of the things we must take out of here is to defend our people. The Jakone regime built 30,000 housing units for the poor. In Lagos, middle-level people. 1981, 82, over 40 years ago. One of those buildings has collapsed. Now, you will now use the money of the people to build houses for the rich. And ignore, and then go and demolish. You go and demolish the houses of the poor. That must stop. What idea I want to take home here? I'm talking about rule of law. What I title my paper is rule of rulers, not rule of law. Rule of law means all of us are bound by the law. We are treated equally by the law. We must comply with the law, including the government. But that's not like the case in Nigeria. What you now have is rule of ruler, rule of cabinet. Whatever they say, nobody must challenge it. Again, I think I want to thank Tommy here. But 3 weeks ago, a youth corps member expressed her views about the president, about the ongoings in the country. They summoned her. They were going to deal with that. Obviously, they would have extended her service. She would have led members of his party to the NYC headquarters. They ran away. Because the guilty are always afraid. Just last week, a student in Asaba, School of Nursing, was alleged to have sent out, in this age of science and technology, a video recording of the wife of the president, where everybody knows his father now, everybody knows his mother. So why was I calling my mother? But that was an offense. She was already queried, but because of the anger of the youths and Nigerians in the social media, it was the governor of the state who ordered the commissioner of health go and stop that Bawukun exercise there. And that was how that girl was free. The point I'm making, therefore, all of us must see injustice to one as injustice to another. When we are gathered on this occasion, as I did say, when we are to bury our comrade and friend, as I'm here, we are not here to celebrate his wealth. No. We are not here to find how many houses he built. We are here to celebrate his consistency, his integrity, and his principles. And it's a challenge to all of us. It's not a question of, yes, we can gather and be money forever. No! What we should do is to decide collectively here today that those things that Yinka stood for, we are going to continue to demand from the government and from the enemies of our people how to reorganize our country. For those of us in Lagos, and we must start this year. They claim that Lagos is the 5th largest economy in Africa. Now, we must start with the appropriation of Lagos State budget. You understand me? All those your local governments and SCDs here, SCDA. We must please, when you live here, please go and find out. Can we have a copy of your budget? Let us begin to demand accountability. Whatever they put in the budget, we must ensure that they implement it. And those in Abuja, your senators and House of Representatives, in 2024, averagely, if each senator took away 500 million, this apart from their salary, they call it constituency project. That means projects for you. I just told a senior advocate yesterday in the Kenya here, Orewa, when are we going to ask our senator to account? We are going to do a letter. And each of us must also be ready to do that. There are 24 legislators in the House of Reps from Lagos, 40 people in Alausaga. We must start to ask questions. When we learn that our governor has traveled somewhere to attend a party, we must ask questions. You know what I mean? So, and this is what Yinka will have done today. Will Yinka have been keeping quiet? No. Yinka will have been joining issues with the people in Abuja. And that is why we must continue to celebrate Yinka, not once a year, every day. And the only way we can do that is to identify with the masses of our people, to shake off the heavy load that these people have imposed on our people. Please, for those of you in the social media, I beg you, increase, intensify by joining issues with them. They are juggling figures now that things are getting better. Are you not aware? The juggling figures. This is a change rate. They now say oil is coming down to 750. How do you take it? Where do you take it from? They said the dollar, the naira dollar is improving. How? How much was it when you came to power? Our people say, "Oh, Shabo, so if you cannot improve my life, please leave me where you met me." And therefore, thanking our sister again. Joe, please, you must also make this affair. But this affair must not be once a year. You must have a foundation who can work out the details for Yinka Odumaki. And that foundation must have programs. What Yinka stood for. Happily, I hope Mr. Gbaje is still around. I mean, are you a chief? Mr. Gbaje, please. Our friend Olumide was being polite. Yinka and I, Yinka and Odumaki, Olumide and others, we had regular debates, even on the way Afenifere is conducting his affairs. What the Afenifere was noted for power more, Baba, is the welfare package, which later became 4 cardinal programs. Education for everybody, all our children. Access to medical health, Medicare, full employment, the last one, integrated development. Nobody in Afenifere talks about free education for everybody again. So for these organizations to remain relevant, You must go back to the philosophy of AWO. Today, 20 million of our children are on the street. Are you aware? 20 million. The children of Chinese, even Rwandans, want to know computer in primary school. But our own children are on the street. And we want to make progress. And I think it was one of the leaders that made the point. If we abandon the children of the poor, they become a danger for our own children in the future. The last one I must correct here. There are a group of reactionaries circulating the Ìjoba video of 2012. I'm sure many of you will have seen it. And they are now asking, very stupidly, where are these people now? So do you want Yinka to come and be demonstrating from his grave? Or breakaway from his grave? Now there's no country in the world where you expect a nonagenarian or naturalgenarian or even septuagenarian to come and lead you. But the danger, the fraud in that photo is that there have been more successful protests in Nigeria after 2012. And for those who want to show that they love Jonathan more than everybody, ask them, where were they in 2010? When the Yaradua Kaba said Jonathan will not become president, Yinka and some of us state protests in Lagos and Abuja at the risk of our lives. After that, the most successful rally ever held in Nigeria since colonial days is the EndSARS protest of 2020. Are you aware? In Lagos, over 1 million people were on the street. And you have protests in New York, London, South Africa, and the rest of them. Today, in 2024, averagely, if each senator took away 500 million, this apart from their salary, they call it constituency project. That makes projects for you. I just told a senior advocate yesterday in the Ikeja here, Orewa, when are we going to ask our senator to account? We are going to do a letter. And each of us must also be ready to do that. There are 24 legislators in the House of Reps from Lagos, 40 people in Alausaga. We must start to ask questions. When we learn that our governor has traveled somewhere to attend a party, we must ask questions. You know what I mean? So, and this is what Yinka would have done today. Would Yinka have been keeping quiet? No. Yinka will have been joining issues with the people in Abuja. And that is why we must continue to celebrate Yinka, not once a year, every day. And the only way we can do that is to identify with the masses of our people, to shake off the heavy load that these people have imposed on our people. Please, for those of you in the social media, I beg you, increase, intensify by joining issues with them. They are juggling figures now that things are getting better. Are you not aware? The juggling figure. This is a change rate. They now say oil is coming down to 750. How do you take it? Where do you take it from? They said the dollar, the naira dollar is improving. How? How much was it when you go to power? Our people say, oh, Shabo, so, if you cannot improve my life, please leave me where you met me. And therefore, thank our sister again. Yo, please, you must also make this a faith. But this affair must not be once a year.
7. An entertaining channel. Keep watching, keep sharing, and comment where necessary. Thank you. Yoruba TV 247.